CTTB Music Podcast.
Happy August.
Crikey, have you started?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad though you don't have to lean towards yours.
No, that's good. That's good. I have to say, for the benefit of the listeners, the studio's a little sexier today.
Yeah. The double bed's out just in case we get frisky.
Not a chance. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe there's some music to put us in the mood. This month we have Ghost Notes from Veruca Salt, Something More Than Free by Jason Isbell, Venus by Joy Williams, The Blade by Ashley Monroe, Currents by Tame Impala, and Born Into the Echoes, I've been calling it Born Into Echoes, it has to be said, by the Chemical Brothers, for your delights. So we're going to start off with a bit of indie rock, and a band who came around in the mid-90s, made a couple of albums.
Yeah.
And then three members of the band left for various reasons, leaving just Louise Post in the band, who grabbed a few more people into the band and made another 2 or 3 albums after that, before eventually giving up the ghost. So anyway, this is their 5th album, because of that. First to feature the original lineup since their second album back in 1997.
Gosh.
Produced by Brad Wood, who produced their debut album American Thighs. He's also produced Smashing Pumpkins, Placebo, Liz Phair, and various other people. So, is it a welcome return for Veruca Salt, Pete?
Yeah, I like this album. Yeah, it's good. What I like about it is, let's get this one put on a t-shirt. It sounds like it comes straight from that period. Do you know what I mean? That era.
Yeah.
It's straight out of the mid-1990s. It's classic.
It's that classic thing when we criticise people.
We criticise people
that don't move on.
Yeah. And I'm
going
to refer back to this kind of in a spoiler alert in a review we do shortly.
Yeah.
But not in the way you think. But in this case, I'm all for it. I was like, yeah, this is brilliant. This is just a slice of 1995 dropped into 2015. Back into my life. But it doesn't
sound out of place.
But doesn't sound out of place, and actually works. And what refreshing to hear the original lineup, and to actually believe that these women are still 20 years younger. Certainly from the lyrical content, this actually does sound like a group of kids singing classic indie rock from the 90s, and it's not a comeback in that they're now all grown up, mature, and singing about different things. It's all the same stuff.
It is, really, yeah.
But and they get away with it somehow. It's genius.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it really enjoyed the opening. I'd say, and again, it's an album of 3/3. There's always another t-shirt.
Yeah.
And opening third, brilliant. Middle third, tailed off a bit. Final third, brilliant again.
Yeah, it's before you say that, I would say, but one of my issues with the album is that it's 55 minutes long.
Yeah.
At 40 minutes, it could have been very, very good album.
It could have been a blistery album. So instead of being a very good album, it's a good album. And as I say, opening tracks, the Gospel According to Me and Black and Blonde sort of really take you back to that era of indie rock. And then other standout tracks for me, you get the softer ones like Empty Bottle, and Triage, which really is back into grunge territory.
Yeah, I like Triage.
Yeah, I like Triage a lot, and actually closing a couple of tracks as well. Good closing tracks for an album of this time. As you say, probably could have just lost some of the flab in the middle. I really am nitpicking though. I think it's a good album.
Yeah, I agree. I was pleasantly surprised by this record. I mean, the American Thighs, the debut album, was one of my favourite albums of the 90s in the indie rock kind of genre, and I was quite disappointed when they split up after their second album. The exact reasons for that have been never totally revealed, although stolen boyfriends is allegedly one of the reasons. But at that time I kind of picked sides. I definitely kind of stuck with Nina Gordon and followed her solo career and got both her solo albums. and abandoned as the band now call it, the Veruca Starship albums,
Right.
which I quite like, with Louise Post. But I'm glad the hatchets have been buried and they're back together, because I think their voices always worked quite well together.
Yeah.
And I think, again, works a treat, as you say. Gospel According to St. Me is a cracking opening track. Black and Blonde, interestingly, was actually appeared on Nina Gordon's first solo album.
Right.
Which I suddenly can't remember the title of, despite the fact I own it. And it's quite interesting. Tonight and the Rest of My Life, and it was going to annoy me then if I didn't get it, is the album called. But it's interesting they've chosen to put it on this album, because it's quite a bitter song, and it was actually written about Louise Post. It has a line in it, "I'm the greatest fucking thing that ever happened to you." So it's kind of nice that they decided to kind of, reclaim it as a band song.
That's like the Beatles getting back together and doing "How Do You Sleep?" I like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, so that's great. As I say, I really liked the songs you mentioned as well. I also like one of the shortest ones, "Laughing in the Sugar Bowl," which is just a great one. It has counting and ABCDs and stuff in it. It's great. Overall, yeah, very pleased with it. It was a really good indie rock record. And in fact, the only slightly annoying thing I'd say about it is the fact that regular listeners will know we've spent 5-6 years trying to find really good indie rock music from now new bands, and have struggled.
At a time when other bands that we were championing 5 or 6 or longer years ago had sort of gone off a bit. No names, but the Arctic Monkeys aside.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's exactly the point. Here's a band from that era still doing that classic indie rock sound, and are doing it well and getting away with it. I mean, even the Blur album, which we both liked, it was a great Blur album. It did reference the past, but it was very much a Blur album from 2015.
Yeah,
if that's a comparison. I know it's not generally the same, but if that's a good comparison to make. So yeah, really pleased with this album. I'm just so pleased they got back together.
So moving on.
Yeah.
And Jason Isbell, Something More Than Free. This is his 5th solo album. This is made since he left the Drive By Truckers. Interestingly,
wow, he's been productive, hasn't he?
Yeah. Well, the most interesting things about this was that classic thing in 2013 when we were struggling for albums to like. Or actually, no, 2013 was a good year, wasn't it?
Sorry, 2013.
Yeah,
that was our good year.
That was a good year. Sorry, I always get them mixed up.
Which year were you thinking of?
I was thinking last
2012?
year.
That was
2012 and last year. But anyway, in 2013, his last album, Southeastern, appeared in top 10s and top 5s of virtually all the kind of critics' end of year kind of things.
Yeah.
And it was an album that obviously we totally ignored and passed us by.
Maybe we were put off by the title, considering where we live. Eh?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, rail humour.
Rail humour for a couple of people who might get the joke.
Yeah. Thanks, 2 people, for sniggering there.
But anyway, so this is the album thing, and I love this record. Really, really love this record. This is exactly the kind of thing that I kind of grew up. It's kind of country rock kind of thing that I kind of grew up on. So thinking about the Outlaws, Neil Young, Eagles, Little Feat, Jackson Browne. This is it in a kind of nutshell. But it's more than that. They're kind of saying like it's just a kind of copyist record, which it definitely isn't. Although the opening track, "It Takes a Lifetime," is basically a Little Feat song. It isn't, but it could be. It sounds like Little Feat from Sailing Shoes kind of period. Just perfect kind of encapsulation of that kind of southern rock sound. So it opens up the album. You then go into the brilliant 24 Frames, which highlights one of the things I like about both the album and also his songwriting, which is back to that kind of thing that we go on a lot of times. Great lyrics. This is the thing that has a chorus of, you thought God was an architect, now you know he's something like a pipe bomb ready to blow. It's just a brilliant kind of couplet. So it's a brilliant song. So you've started off with these two kind of really kind of rocking numbers, and then suddenly it kind of slows down and goes acoustic.
Yeah.
Where again, a really kind of beautiful song called Flagship, which is a kind of song about kind of seeing people that obviously were in love that now just don't get it. They don't connect anymore, probably not talking to each other and stuff like that, which is really good. And then the album kind of continues along a kind of acoustic-based kind of vibe, but with other things going on in the background until the very end when it gets kind of rocky again. But in the between there, you've got songs like "Children of Children," which is it could have been on any Neil Young album. Frankly, it has that kind of typical kind of Neil Young kind of build, and then the kind of guitar with feedback outro going on, which I really like. You've then got things like "The Life You Choose," which is a beautiful song. "Speed Trap Town," gorgeous.
I really enjoyed that. Really like that song.
And Palmetto Rose and "The Band I Loved," which end the album, which are two kind of more kind of electric-y kind of things. The final one being a song that he wrote for a band, Centromatic, who he also used to be in very briefly.
Busy man.
Back in the day. And yes, I on every listen to this album, I like it more and more and more. The only problem I've had with it is forgetting what some of the songs, of course. I've had to spend part of the last hour reacquainting myself with which song fits with which song title.
Good.
The problem of having things on headphones and stuff and not actually looking what's playing.
Oh, absolutely. You're saying you're there, and people think we don't do research.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this more than any Drive-By Truckers record. I mean, plain and simple. To me, this is what great country folk alt rock sounds like. You know, it's personal, it's personable. It's an absolute joy to listen to, and you feel like you're on a journey when you're listening to an album like this, and you're on a journey with the singer, and it was just fantastic. And you've mentioned all the good tracks, so I think I butted in at Speed Trap Town, which is one of my favourites, and Hudson Commodore as well. The story of the girl just leaving some flyborn backwater and just getting out of there and living a good life at the expense of something else, and really good stories, and obviously 24 Frames. The idea for that is very personal as well, and it's just a beautiful record. Yeah.
Go Jason.
Yeah. Didn't you tweet about it this week? This one, or did you retweeted?
I retweeted someone that we saw,
Angelina Presley.
Yeah. Who we will come on to like very shortly in relation to another album review.
We'll park Angelina. Sorry, Angelina.
But yes, she tweeted a big thumbs up for this record. So I retweeted her thumbs up.
Smashed it.
Yeah. So we move on. I move on sticking with. You would have thought sticking on the kind of country-ish vein in some ways, but not. We have the first solo album from Joy Williams since the breakup of her partnership with John Paul, whatever his name was, White, in the Civil Wars. But this is actually her fifth solo album, because before she joined the Civil Wars, she'd made 4 albums of kind of Christian music, essentially. They're very God Squad-y lyrically. Which I think she'd tired. I think she's still obviously a Christian, but I think she'd kind of tired of the kind of constraints on her writing that singing to that kind of music had. So instead, she's recorded this album, which I think we can say is neither a typical Christian record or another Civil Wars record, is it, Pete?
No, it's neither of those things. And to be honest with you, I think what lets this record down is exactly where does it sit? There's a number of influences clearly drawn upon and drawn into this record. I don't know if it's trying to be a pop record at times.
I think it certainly is.
But not quite reaching those heights. I don't know if it's trying to be a soul record. It has a lot of potential, and you know what? If it'd been honed and crafted, and oh my goodness, you know, it all comes back down to the production, doesn't it? The thing that we usually don't say, or we say the opposite. I'm now saying the opposite. I just felt it meandered a little. Of all the records we reviewed this month, this was probably my least favourite.
Yeah.
And I'm probably being overly critical because up against other stuff that we've reviewed, it's all right. It's a solid album, but I think it just lacks something. That said, on the positive side, really enjoyed some of the lyrics, some of the songs.
Yes, there's clearly some of the lyrics that are clearly pointed in the way of the Civil War's breakup.
Absolutely. And again, it's the best songwriting we seem to be covering at the moment. Certainly in the last few months, comes from a very personal vein of songwriting that is prevalent at the moment. So yeah, some of the best stuff there. But this one didn't float for me.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying actually, because again, it is, as you say, it's a bit Kate Bushy at times. Before I Sleep, opening track, as you can imagine, being done by Kate. Even Woman, you could imagine, being done by Kate Bush.
Sure.
And it has that kind of feel occasionally, and then it kind of goes off on slight kind of tangents, as you say. It kind of moves towards soul. I mean, apparently she's now good buddies with Mr. Timberlake, who got her connected to the bloke who co-wrote half the album and produced it. But again, I mean, I quite like Woman, actually, but for me, the songs that I like the most are the ones, funnily enough, that are lyrically clearly aiming towards what's happened. So One Day I Will and What a Good Woman Does, I think, are both really great lyrically, and about that kind of hurt and kind of pain you get with any kind of breakup.
Yeah.
So I think when it's doing that, it works quite well. But I tend to agree with you that overall there's something, I don't know what it is, that's kind of missing from it that really needed it for it to gel for me.
Yeah.
And for it to be something that I'd go, oh yes, I'm going to go back to this, and this is something that I'm going to want to be putting on as an album.
Yeah.
Again and again. And it's similarly to you, it was probably the album of the 6 we're dealing with this podcast that I probably liked the least.
Yeah, I probably won't listen to this again. But I'm not saying you shouldn't.
You should just listen to it once.
I listened to it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, no, you should listen to that. You should listen to all albums 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Before dismissing them.
Doing research.
So, moving on. And moving definitely back to country this time, with the 3rd solo album from Ashley Monroe. It's called The Blade. Similarly, we didn't review her last album, which was also a very highly critically raved about record. Again, it was lost in the ether somewhere. For those who don't know, she's also recorded 2 albums with Miranda Lambert and the aforementioned Angelina Presley as the Pistol Annies. And obviously we saw Angelina Borderline
last week. She was brilliant, by the way.
She was very, very, very good, and did very well, considering that she was basically playing with a put-together band of Brits who obviously hadn't had that long to learn the material.
And do you know what? They all gelled as well. That was a good little band.
Yeah, it was alright. And she was a good laugh.
Yeah, she was a good laugh, which always helps.
It does indeed. But back to Ashley Monroe herself, rather than her. This is for me. This album is partly summed up by there's a line in the opening song which says I'm better dancing when I'm not looking down, which I kind of like. Amen to that. Yeah. And so this is a line from the rather pop-tastic opening track on the album, Onto Something Good. Co-written by one of the co-writers actually was Luke Laird, who one of the co-producers and writers on the Casey Musgraves album.
Yeah.
In a way, it's quite funny that that's the opening track, because in a way it gives you a false idea of what the album's about. This is a big kind of poppy number, and then the rest of the album is actually probably as varied as you can get while staying within the kind of confines of country music. Because you've got kind of country blues, you've got kind of Elvis almost kind of country kind of thing. You've got some very trad country and western kind of stuff. But, all of which she handles well. She's got a voice that reminds me a lot of kind of Dolly Parton's, that kind of country voice. Yeah. Sort of that. And I'm going to say my problem is the album before I kind of actually come back and say I actually do like it. My problem with the album is I think it could have been structured better. I think the running order could have been perhaps done to kind of tell more of a story. Yeah. Because whilst it's not meant to be a concept album and be telling a story, if you examine the lyrics in quite a lot of the songs, you could actually make one from what you've got. So I think the album could have flowed better by changing the running order. That aside, it has to be said, the songs themselves are, with the exception of a couple of tracks maybe, universally good. Good mixture of stuff. She's got some good co-writers in helping her, including Jesse Alexander, who we saw at the Country to Country thing at the O2. Oh, yeah. Who co-writes on, I think, 3 or 4 of the songs on here. Yeah. Also, the second track of the album, I Buried Your Love Alive, also one of my favourite tracks on the album, was co-written by Matracia Berg, who I'm a big fan of. And the album's produced by Vince Gill, who's a country legend himself, who also co-wrote Weight of the Load, which is the 4th track on the album. Also a good one. Bizarrely, good. Yeah, bizarrely, one of the best tracks on the album is one she had nothing to do with, which is the title track, The Blade. Which I like, because it has that kind of thing of, like, you know, you caught it by the handle, I caught it by the blade. And I think that's the kind of thing, again, it's that kind of relationship thing of, you know, someone always gets screwed. Yeah, someone always gets the good end of the stick, someone else gets the bad end of the stick, kind of thing. Similarly, in the song, I think it's Winning Streak. It's that one where it's talking about if losing is a game, I'm on a winning streak, which is a bit like the, you know, if it wasn't for bad luck, I've had no luck at all kind of sentiment. And that song itself is a good kind of Elvis-style country rocker. It's hard to say anything more than the fact that it's just actually, again, it's just a nice collection of well-written songs, interesting lyrics, mostly about pain and misery. It has to be said. Apart from on Something Good, the opening track. Although even then, you could argue that's not perhaps you know. So it's kind of what country music should be about. Yeah, really.
No, it is about pain and misery.
Yeah. So I'm happy to give it a thumbs up and add it to my good country list. Yeah.
No, it's a good country. There's some good Southern God-fearing in this album as well.
Oh yeah.
We mentioned Christian rock a moment ago. There's some good old-fashioned Lord in this throughout this.
If the devil don't want me, where the hell do I go? That's one of my favourite lines of the album.
And she broke the 5th commandment as well. I'm gonna have to look that up. I hope it's not murder. So you know, it's so there we go. Again, nitpicking. For me, you've touched on it. It's the way this album varies from some subgenre to subgenre. It brushes up against new country at times, and I don't like that. That's personal preference. I just don't like that, and it does brush up against there sometimes in a way that the Casey Musgrave album skillfully avoids, and remains brilliant sort of pop country or whatever you want to call it now. But it sort of moves, drifts from style to style, and it's another. It feels like a longer album than 46 minutes as well. So it could have lost a couple of tracks.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, 46 minutes is perfectly acceptable length for an album, but you just could have lost a couple of tracks somewhere. But great tracks. You've mentioned all the good ones. Again, I'd throw in Dixie, of course, as well, and Mayflowers. Really enjoyed Mayflowers.
Two good country
real
songs.
country songs, exactly. You know, I'll take April Showers if I get Mayflowers, and being the general theme. So that's good, fine by me. So I preferred the Jason Isbell album.
Yes,
if I'm honest, I prefer the Angelina Presley album that we've previously reviewed.
I would agree with that.
So as I said, for those reasons, but yes, it's a good album.
So moving on to Australia.
Tame Impala, mate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not a good day for Australia at the moment.
No, it isn't.
Is it, Alison?
No, it really isn't. I mean, you know.
Don't mention the cricket.
What was it? Let's mention the score again. Let's crystallise this moment.
Australia all out for 60, I believe.
Yeah, that really dates the podcast for future generations. There you go.
So, moving on.
Moving off.
Yeah. Third album from Tame Impala. And one where they have moved more electronic, shall we say, Peter?
Yeah, I'll say.
Does it work for you, though, Pete?
Of course it bloody does. I really enjoyed this album. Surprise. Effing surprise. I probably enjoyed this more than the previous previous two records, one of which I do remember us reviewing. It had a lot going on. This album was clearly a homage to all that sort of 80s and 90s dance music that I like.
Yes.
But done well, and not done in a way that completely overtook what they're about or what the album's about. I actually thought that it was actually it shifted. It did subtly shift from style to style as well. Maybe you picked that up. But I thought it was done. I thought it was done very well. Brilliant opening. Let It Happen.
Yes, almost 8 minutes of...
Almost 8 minutes, but it doesn't feel like 8 minutes.
No, of pop loveliness.
Pop loveliness. If you like Hot Chip, you'll like Let It Happen. In fact, this is the Hot Chip album we didn't quite get this year, I think. I was a little bit disappointed with that Hot Chip album we reviewed a couple months ago.
That's quite a good...
this is almost the Hot Chip album we haven't had. And the brilliant moments in there, including the moment, obviously. There was... I'm trying to think which one it was. I'm gonna come to Past Life in a moment because I've got something very special to say about that. But I can't remember if it was Yes, I'm Changing or Eventually. I got a real Pet Shop Boys flashback to 1990.
Sure, not eventually. There's some guitar in eventually.
Yeah.
That's the first time a guitar appears.
Well, I think that was the first time a guitar appeared in a Pet Shop Boys album. To be fair, Johnny Marr on guitar. So that was good.
So eventually the follow-up album to Actually.
Actually, indeed, yes, you get it. 'Cause I'm a Man.
'Cause I'm a Man's great.
Because I'm a Man's great. Right, Past Life and 'Cause I'm a Man. Okay, here's my case. Would be both brilliant Prince records.
Well, 'Cause I'm a Man just reminds me of something else. And I kind of annoy, every time I hear it, I kind of think, sure somebody's recorded that before.
For
I'm
me,
sure he's just nicked the tune off somebody.
For me, it was Prince, circa 1993. You know, I could just see him sort of like doing that one, and obviously Past Life has just got that, that weird voiceover in it, which I couldn't get over.
Past Life Disciples, 'Cause I'm a Man, and Reality Emotion are possibly my favourite.
Yeah,
it's possibly my favourite section of the album.
I would agree. I think the second half, apart from the first couple of tracks, all right, first 2 or 3 tracks maybe, the second half of this album is better.
Yes.
Yeah, and it, to the point where we get to Love, Paranoia, New Person, Same Old Mistakes. You actually think I've actually listened to a really good record. Whereas some of those tracks I mentioned a moment ago were perhaps the Pet Shop Boys references aside, were perhaps the weaker or softer end of the album. But Past Life, I could just imagine Prince doing that and actually narrating the part of the guy on the phone talking about my lover.
I can see what you're doing there.
Yeah, you see where I'm going like that? Yeah, bit of Prince.
Yeah.
No. Okay, what did you think?
It's an album that's growing on me slowly.
Ah, gotcha.
But in a way, I think, like their first album, it's an album that I don't think I'm going to get past just thinking is good, okay, as opposed to Lonerism, which is their last album, which I loved. I don't know why. I mean, like I said, the second half of the album, particularly as I said, is very good. There's still some great tunes in it, but I got slightly kind of bored isn't the right word, but there were several moments, particularly probably from the moment down to Past Life, where it could have been all one track, really, as far as I was concerned. And I was a bit kind of like, where does this start? Where's that song stop? Where's this? Is there anything going on there? Isn't this just the repeat of what's happened before? But not in a good way. But there's enough there to make it worth coming back to.
Yeah.
So let it happen, as you say at the start, and Nangs straight after it, which I quite like. That hooks you in enough to make you stay with it, because you know that Past Life Disciples, because I'm a man, Reality Emotion are going to be there towards the end.
Yeah.
So because of that, I will listen to this again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It draws you back in. It repeats. It rewards on repeat listenings.
Yes.
And it repeats on yourself.
It repeats on yourself, yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of repeating on yourself, we come to the Chemical Brothers.
Good link!
Born into the Echoes. The 8th album from Simmons and Rowlands. Yeah. This has taken me a while as well. First couple of listens to this, I wasn't very sure about how kind or not I was going to be to this album. Because there was quite a bit that was annoying me the first time I listened to it. First couple of times I listened to it. However, I was trying to see through the negative. The negative, and back to what we were saying earlier on, the thing where you can be, on one hand, praising someone for making a record that sounds like they did 20 years ago.
I'm going to come back to that in a moment.
And then on the other hand, criticising someone for making a record that sounds like they did 20 years ago. However, Tom and Ed are both very talented guys, and so I'm always happy to listen to anything they do. You know, they were there at the kind of, along with people like Orbital, so that they were there at the start of this whole EDM movement that has now become mainstream, essentially.
Yeah.
But thankfully, their version of it, whilst leaning into mainstream, also has its edge still. I think the edge is there simply because their inventive kind of multi-layered kind of instrumentation within the kind of electronic sphere, and interesting melody lines that occasionally, like great jazz and classical music, kind of almost verge on the edge of sounding out of tune.
Yeah.
And kind of contrary. So when they do stuff like that, and it's kind of challenging musically, it interests me more than the kind of singing along bits.
Yeah.
So as a result, my kind of favourite tracks on the album are the ones that have either no singing or very little. So Just Bang, which doesn't have a lot in it, and Reflection, which is straight after that, which is perhaps the most Orbital sounding track on the album, which is possibly why I like it the most. And interestingly, I think there's that, and I think Taste of Honey, which comes after that, which are the only 3 tracks where they're the only writers.
Yeah.
And they haven't got anybody else chipping in. Those are the ones I actually probably like best on the record. However, there's lots of singing on it, lots of interesting stuff. Some good pop. Starts off with Sometimes I Feel So Deserted, and then goes into Go, which are 2 good, pop EDM tracks.
Yep.
Sure, there'll be lots of people going out and buying them as singles, if you can still buy stuff as singles these days on downloads. And then later on in the album, it ends with a rather lovely ballad, Wide Open, which has Beck providing the vocals for it. Also on vocals, guest vocal wise, Annie Clark, otherwise known as St Vincent, crops up on which is the track she's on?
Under Neon Lights.
Under Neon Lights.
Yeah.
Which I've warmed to.
Yeah.
Having annoyed me to start off with. Bizarrely, the track that sounds more like her is actually the title track, which has Kate Le Bon singing on it. That actually is also one of my favourite tracks on the album, actually, but that actually sounded to me more like St Vincent. Although it also bizarre, there was a strange kind of Joy Division, echoes of Joy Division going on in the kind of way that's kind of sounded and was constructed as well, which I quite liked.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's. I'll let you mention the Noel Gallagher bit. So overall, I'm positive about it. So again, there's enough here to keep me listening, and even the tracks that I'm not as keen on. The instrumentation's interesting enough, and arrangement's interesting enough to make me wait for the track that I do like.
Yeah. Okay. My point was going to be separate to your point, I guess. That actually, and I disagree with something you said. Ooh, a disagreement. That actually, I think that with the exception of a couple of tracks which I'll come to, this album actually feels less like one of their classic albums and actually feels like a modern 2015 record. Certainly the first 4 tracks, yes, they do reference EDM. I guess there's only so much EDM you can reference without sounding like Another Year. But actually, I feel this is a very current record. I was thinking of, again, and it's been troubling me for months, as you know, the Prodigy album that we reviewed.
That troubled me, yeah.
That troubled you. It's troubled me. I've been more positive about it recently. But for me, the difference here is that both bands rode to quite considerable success around a similar time. The Prodigy are still kind of stuck in turn of the century, maybe 2002 sort of electro clash land where they landed after Fat the Land. Excuse you. Whereas I think Chemical Brothers have continued to evolve, and I think it's maybe that sort of more classical element that you mentioned that enables them to do that. So the first 4 tracks for me could have been any album from 2015 that was a good EDM album. Not necessarily a Chemical Brothers album. And yeah, completely agree with what you're saying around Just Bang, Reflection and so on. I also really liked Radiate and Wide Open. I thought as a couplet, they were 2 great tracks to bring the album back down.
Yes, guitar in Radiate as well.
Exactly. That for me, that just fit. The thing that jars with everything I've just said, of course, is that middle track, I'll See You There, where they do a classic slice of the Chemical Brothers, My Private Psychedelic, Real Setting Sun, Let Forever Be with Noel Gallagher. It's that. Yeah. I didn't like that because I was just like, this is unnecessary. You've really set this album up as a brilliant Chemical Brothers album in 2015, as I've said, and then you go and do that.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. That just took me straight back to and I thought, this is about the 3rd or 4th time we've heard this.
When I originally played that, I was playing it on Spotify on the computer, and I actually thought I'd made the mistake of just choosing the Chemical Brothers as an artist rather than an individual album, and it had jumped to that track,
1996 or whatever. Yeah. So whereas with Veruca Salt, didn't mind that at all.
Yeah, it can be contrary. It's fine.
I can be contrary. Chemical Brothers didn't like it. So that sort of took me out of the flow a little bit and jarred. But other than that, I think this is a really good album.
One last thing I will say.
Go on.
Yeah. I still prefer the Black Mass album.
Yes, without a doubt, best electronic album we've listened to this year is the Black Mass album, which I listened to again only yesterday.
There you go. Just wanted to get that in there before we praise them too highly.
Yeah, by a long way.
Right, I think that's us for this particular podcast. I will say that the Jason Isbell is my favourite album of the month.
Okay.
And that coming in podcast 8, this one's been difficult, kids. It's really annoying when lots of people release albums in September.
Yeah.
So, coming up in podcast 8, Frank Turner, Positive Songs for Negative People. Doing that one for Spencer, because he said, can you review the next Frank Turner album?
Okay,
yes,
Spencer.
we can.
Yes, we can.
Chelsea Wolfe, Abyss. Then we do 2 rap albums that have both recently come out. New Public Enemy album, Man Plans, God Laughs, and Ghostface Killer, Adrian Young presents 12 Reasons to Die 2. We then have Wilco, Star Wars.
Not looking to cash in there.
Yeah. And, I know you've been waiting for this one, there's a new Foals album out. What Went Down? Can a band that have constantly annoyed me make a record where I kind of go, wow, this is really fucking good. Knowing my luck, yes, they can. It's out on the 28th of August. We'll find out next podcast.
Look forward to that. One final thing from me. You've named your favourite album. I don't think I can.
You're torn.
I'm not really torn.
In a Natalie Imbruglia kind of way.
She's back, by the way. Jason Isbell wins on the country and rock side of things. Obviously, Veruca Salt also enjoyable. And I did like the Tame Impala and Chemical Brothers records, so I'm not going to pick a winner this time.
So basically just the two you didn't name.
Yeah, the two I didn't name. And that's unfair to one of them.
So basically just buy or download all the albums except for the Joy Williams one. Is essentially what we're saying.
Yeah. Alright, I'll go with Jason. Fine, I'll agree with you.
Until next time. You've been listening to the CTTB Music Podcast.